Thanks, Judy, for inviting me. So yeah, I have known Judy from the book club for about 12, 14, 16 years, something like that. And anyway, so we're getting a table set up. I did bring some dolls, so I'm sorry I'm running a bit late. So I'll put those up after my talk, if that's okay. And I've been asked to speak for about 30 minutes. Is that okay? Please keep me to my time. Alright, and I'll introduce myself. So Angela Bushell is my name. I took the day off work today to come and speak to you. So I work at the University of Queensland. I have been a lecturer. That's why I need to have a time limit, because I could just go on and talk for hours. So my background is in engineering, and I have been an engineering lecturer. I'm not actually doing that at the moment. I'm working in IT. And I'm not working with students. So I got a little bit burnt out working with students. So I do miss them. I do miss talking with students. If anybody here has have been a teacher or a lecturer at any time, then you'll understand that, how exhausting it can be, but also how rewarding. So they start, I think if you've got anyone starting at university, we're in teaching week this week, and then next week's another week, and then the students all come back. So the traffic will be horrendous at the university. So I'm wearing a dress today. I specifically chose this dress because it is inspired by Barbie and her fashion. And this comes from 2023. It's a review dress made for the movie. And if anybody knows the fashion, and I'll show you a picture, it's inspired by Roman holiday, one of the outfits from 1959. So another thing about me is I am, like I said, I've got a very technical background, but I also love craft and fashion and dolls, and I am a crafter as well. So, sitting here with all those supplies down the back, I'm sort of, quite drawn to those too. So I've been in knitting groups and quilting groups and craft groups for many years, as well as book groups. And I'm also in the Australian Barbie Club. So has anybody heard of the Australian Barbie Club before? Yes? Okay, you want to join? Okay, yes. So I've been in the Australian Barbie Club since 2017. And I'm the current librarian for the Queensland chapter. So we have chapters obviously across the main, the eastern states, Western Australia. We have conventions. So we had our last convention last year in Sydney over a weekend, and we have a Queensland convention in 2029, which is when Barbie will be celebrating her 70th birthday. So, I don't know what we're going to do about that we're in the planning for that at the moment. So, okay, I do have some materials here to read from, so I'll just grab those. Okay, hands up if you've ever had a doll, if you want to put your hand up. Okay, cool? Okay. Hands up if you've ever had a Barbie doll. Alright, there's some. What about a Cindy doll? Cindy, yeah. Tressie. Yeah, Tressie. Alright, I'm just Tammy. Yep. I'm just trying to think. What other dolls did you have that like a teenage fashion doll? Ken, of course. We always forget about Ken, don't we? Alright, what about some of Barbie's friends, like Francie, that's her cousin, Alan, Midge, yes, of course, Midge, how could we forget Midge? So there's a whole raft of teenage fashion dolls. Okay. Alright, so I established that you've got some understanding here of what we're talking about. When Judy sort of mentioned that, to do a talk, she also mentioned about Ruth Handler as being somebody that you might be interested in. Does anyone know who Ruth Handler is?
Yes.
Yeah, who do you think she is?
I think she was the one that developed Barbie.
Yeah, that's correct.
And she's in the Barbie movie.
She is, you're right. She's in the Barbie movie at the very end. Who has seen that movie?
Sadly.
Sadly? Yeah, it's very popular. There you go. Well, what can I say about the Barbie movie? A lot of people ask me, they say, what do you think about the Barbie movie? tributes in it, you know, around clothing and, you know, accuracy, and it was entertaining and stuff, but yeah, a little bit too much pink for my liking. I'm not really a pink person, so that was a little bit much. But anyway, let's talk about Ruth for a second. So Ruth Handler, now I've got some notes here about her. So yeah, as Judy said, I went to Mastermind last year and answered some questions on Ruth. So I've read all the books. The knowledge is in here, but it might take a little bit of a while to come out. But Ruth is an American, and she was born in Denver, Colorado in 1916, and she's the youngest of 10 children, a Jewish family. Polish Jewish. And what happened to her was that she was the youngest of 10. When she was born, or she was very young, her mother got sick, and she sent Ruth off to be looked after by her older sister, Sarah. So there was, 10 children, and I think Sarah was about 20 years older. So Ruth lived with Sarah and her husband, and just around the corner from her parents. And I think that kind of had a bit of an impact on her life, that she sort of felt that she was a little bit neglected potentially as a young child, not really understanding why she can't live with her parents, and her older sister looked after her. So her older sister didn't have any children, and her older sister Sarah and her husband ran businesses. So they were very business oriented. They had pharmacies, they had shops, they had corner stores, all sorts of things. So Ruth grew up in the environment of working in the shop every weekend. So she's very entrepreneurial, she understood business, she had a little bit of a chip on her shoulder potentially from not getting that validation from her parents, and it always caused tension. So at a young age, she knew she wasn't academic, but she had met this young man in Denver, Colorado called Izzy Handler as a teenager. Izzy, another Jewish family, immigrant, and the wrong kind of Jewish for the family, apparently. So she had met him in Denver, and they started a romance. But her parents and her sister didn't want her getting to know Izzy too well, so they sent her off to LA to work as a secretary. So she worked in Paramount Picture Theatre as a secretary for about 3 years, and Izzy Handler followed her out to LA. So persistently wanting to date Ruth, eventually he won her parents over and her family, and they were able to marry. So they married quite young, and Ruth, understanding Paramount and Hollywood a little bit, having spent time there, knew that they needed to get a business started. So Izzy was very good at making things. So they started a business. He was working with another gentleman called Harold Matson. And the three of them started a business in their garage. Anybody know what that business might be? Hotel, yeah. So Ruth said to Izzy, I don't think your name's very acceptable as a business name. I want you to change it to Elliot. So he went, okay, all right. So that was his middle name. So she insisted he change his name to Elliot Handler, and with Harold Matson, they concatenated the name and started a hotel in a garage. So at first they made, Elliot was very good, very good at moulding plastics, so they started with picture frames. And then they moved into toys and dollhouse toys, and they had a lot of success with a thing called a Yucadoodle. Has anybody ever heard of a Yucadoodle? It's basically like a ukulele, but it had a little wind-up mechanism inside it that it will play music. So that's where they made their money. That's where they started with the toys, and using that sort of ingenuity of creating something that is reproducible and high volume, but also was unique in the market. So that success drove Mattel, and so Ruth was still working at Paramount during the day and then helping on the weekends. She had a lot of drive. But after some time, she gave up work and she started working with Mattel full time, and they were making a lot of money. So time goes on, things happen, and after they'd made a little bit of money and they had 2 children and success was there, they went on a European holiday in 1955 to, see the sights. So 6 weeks out, go back to the old countries and, see Europe. So on on that trip, they went to Germany. So I think Barbara was about 11 and Ken, that's her son, was about, 7 or 8. And they were in Germany in a small town, and they spotted some dolls in a window. So German manufacturing of toys is very well known, 19th century, very strong southern German toy manufacturing area. So they spotted these dolls called Lily. And so spotted the doll, Lily, and in her mind, Ruth had wanted to get a doll up and running for Mattel for some time. So they were dabbling in, the Yukadoodle, they had a lot of mechanisms, they were developing plastics in Japan, they were trying to develop Hot Wheels, shortly after that, Hot Wheels, the miniature car. So she was very entrepreneurial and she went, dolls, I really want to get into dolls. And I can see that my daughter, Barbara, is playing with paper dolls and cut-out clothes. So I did that. I grew up in the 70s. I was still cutting out clothes and dolls in the 70s. So I can imagine that people were, children were doing that from a very young age, certainly in the 40s and the 50s. Did anyone ever play with cut-out dolls in the fashions? Yeah, get those scissors around the frill and the line. Hard, right? So Ruth saw that her daughter was playing with these dolls and imagining 1940s, 1950s fashion. And she thought, right, I want to turn that into something. But she couldn't quite convince Harold and Elliot and the people at Mattel to do it. They were like, no, it's not going to sell. Nobody wants, dolls with boobs. So, baby dolls. Girls just want to be mothers, right? And she was like, no, I can see that my daughter's doing this. So when she saw the Lily doll in Germany, she went, it can be done. It can be made. There can be a doll that has, adult female proportions. So that was a bit of a light bulb moment for her. So she bought a number of those dolls back to America, and the Lily doll. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about that doll. It was derived from a cartoon in a newspaper as a bit of a men's amusement sort of toy. So Lily was highly sexualized. She sort of had Aryan sort of, proportions of blonde hair, and she was like a little bit of a sort of a joke cartoon. And then a German company said, okay, we can make those dolls. They had a lot of expertise in plastic molding, so they made the dolls and they sold very well. But they weren't toys. They were sort of a bit of a men's joke toy, I suppose. Give it to your mates and, ooh, I've got a Lily doll on my shelf. And she did come with a lot of interchangeable clothes as well. So the fashions were only for the doll that you bought. You couldn't buy the fashion separately. So Ruth saw an opportunity. She went, great, I'm going to take this doll back to America. She bought a whole bunch, took all the clothes, went back to her engineering team. They did have an engineering team, led by somebody you might have heard of called Jack Ryan. Has anyone ever heard of Jack Ryan? A bit of a celebrity. So he was a rocket engineer, and he had been helping them with these very complex mechanisms in the Yukadoodle and other things to try and make music, but very lightweight and plastic molded. So she gave the Lily doll to Jack, and Jack went to Japan, and he worked on it for maybe 12 months to try and get the plastic molding proportions and the body proportions correct. So he actually ended up being a part owner of the patent for the Barbie doll, and that caused some problems down the track, legally for the Mattel company and Jack, and that's another saga. So anyway, against all odds, Ruth gets the doll made. Engineer hat on, thing to do, like moulding the plastic, making the hand details accurate, the thumbs, the fingers, getting the consistency in Japan. So they developed a lot of new processes for the doll. Okay, so it was cutting edge. Maybe we benefited from it. I don't know. You know, the way they make glasses nowadays or something. I don't know. But yeah. So certainly some cutting edge technology there. And then in 1959, against Harold and Elliott's thoughts and judgment, she took the doll to the International Toy Fair in New York and presented it in March. It didn't sell, it wasn't popular. The buyers for the toy store, for the big supermarket, the big department stores didn't like it. They didn't understand it, they didn't think it would sell. It bombed. It bombed at that international fair. So that was the 5th of March 1959. So that's the day that we commonly think of as Barbie's birthday. So that's when she first came to the world, and so we'll be celebrating, you know, in just a month's time. So after that, but Ruth didn't give up. She'd invested, she'd spent a lot of money in Japan, she'd spent a lot of money developing this. She went, no, I know it's going to work. So she went to those toy department stores, you know, firsthand, and finally she got a sale, and then eventually took off. So the kids loved it. They loved Barbie, and the rest is history, I suppose. So the genius, really, I suppose, with Ruth is the marketing ability. So she saw that the dolls themselves were expensive to make. They sold for $3 each, but the clothes they could make, the margins were really high, like 200%. So the way they were making those clothes is by piecework in Japan. So all the workers that were manufacturing the clothes in Japan were doing them all at home. So there were ladies, generally ladies, doing all this piecework, making all these tiny little doll clothes at home and taking them to the factory, and then, you know, getting their money that way. So the detail of the early series of clothes was very high, and but the margins were high too, because they were paying Japanese wages. So there was the money, there was the entrepreneurial success. So that persisted for a number of years. So does anybody have any Barbie dolls from when they were younger still? Yes, great. So you might know what I'm talking about. So what kind of, can I just ask, what kind of era are you sort of talking about with your Barbie dolls that did you have?
In the 1960s.
60s.
About 65, 66.
Yep, great. Yep, 65. Yep, what about you?
I've got my sister's original Barbie. She was born in 55, so she would have got one when she was about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
They said burnt hair.
Great, yeah, great. Yeah, well, hold on to those. They are worth a goodly amount of money now. So I don't have one. I don't have the cash for that. But some of my collector friends, that's the benefit of being in a club, right? Some of your friends are a bit more wealthier than you are, and they have those sorts of dolls. So one of my collector friends in Toowoomba, she has a Build Lily doll. I think she paid about $30,000 for it. I know, that's probably what it goes for. She's got a number 1 series. The number 1 is 1959. So yeah, I think that was about $25,000. Number 2, number 3. So they go on. So they if they're in really good nick, they are worth a lot of money. And certainly the clothes are as well, the fashions. So let me just sort of quickly think about what else you might be interested in. So Ruth did continue with Mattel and grow the success of Barbie. Like, as I mentioned, Hot Wheels was another one of their big sort of early developments that is here today. But Ruth, I guess the pressure of corporate life and entrepreneurship took its toll on her, and in about the late early 70s, I can't quite remember the date, she got in trouble with the federal government in the US for tax evasion. And so there was a terrible, a case, a circumstance, probably was founded in truth that she was sort of cooking the books a bit about how much money what their sales, what their revenue was, and then when they were getting the intake. So she got indicted. She got sent to court as a very high-profile case. She was pushed out of Mattel. She was found guilty of it. I think they settled. They pushed her out of Mattel, and then she basically was sort of emotionally ruined after that. Not quite financially ruined, but emotionally ruined. I think she was a very driven businesswoman, and she had a difficult relationship with her children, particularly Barbara. Can you imagine why? She was a workaholic, Ruth. She worked 7 days a week, and she didn't spend a lot of time with her children. And then you find out that your mother loves a creation of a doll, potentially, more than you, might be a little bit of a difficult path for Barbara. And then calling Barbie's boyfriend Ken, and that's his son, is a bit weird. Anyway, so Ruth was a bit lost. She was a gambler. She gambled. Her whole family gambled, so she came from that background. And she spent a lot of time in Las Vegas. She gambled. They had a lot of wealth that they accrued, but they would, be generally, losing that wealth. So a pivotal moment for Ruth was when she got breast cancer, and she had a mastectomy, and she decided her entrepreneurial spirit rose again, and she decided to develop prosthetics, for boobs. So she leaned into that, she made a market there for prosthetic boobs, breasts, and eventually she ended up as a double mastectomy, person. So she lost her second breast. So she made a bit of some money there, and I think she sold that business to Playtex or something for a good amount of money, but not the success of Barbie. So she died in 2002, but one of the books that I've got here, she has written the foreword in that, so she's still very much regarded as the mother of Barbie. Jack Ryan, how am I going for time? Getting there. I've got some dolls that I'll get out, and we can talk about that in a second. Or maybe I'll do that now. Jack Ryan quickly had the patents for a lot of the Mattel toys, and he should have been a very rich man. He was a very rich man. He was, did a lot of crazy, wacky things, and built castles in LA, and was a known womanizer. And anyway, Mattel decided to stop paying him the royalties because it was just eating into their profit margin. And he just took them to court, and that court case financially crippled him, and he died a very sort of bitter, sad man. So it's hard when you're an inventor of things to sort of make it pay, and he did for a while, but it didn't end well. So now Mattel is a big corporation. It's not handlers have got nothing to do with it anymore. They might still have some interest in it, some shares, but they are not controlling. So now it's just a big corporation. Anyway, so I've got some dolls down the back that I can get out here, but what have I got here? Okay, so I've got about 300 dolls. Yeah, so I think I've got a database. It's about 350, 360. And like I said, I'm a lightweight. Some of my colleagues in the club, this friend of mine from Melbourne, she has got $6,000. She spends a lot of money on them too, And she's got a 5-bedroom house. I haven't been there, but 3 of those bedrooms are full of dolls. Nice for her, nice for some. So Barbie is big business, it's huge business, so why do I collect? I don't know, I love it. I love dolls, I love fashion. I am a Sydney child. I did have Cindy as a young person. Didn't like Barbie. Barbie was a little bit too glam for me. I liked, thank you. Oh, I've got some dolls here, I'll show you. Okay, so I do have some dolls from 1960, as you mentioned. Some of the people here. So this is called the Brownette Swirl of 1964. Maybe this is the doll that you have. I found her in an op shop for $10. So she's a little bit sad, she's been a bit played with, but that's okay, I don't mind. And her outfit is called Travelling something, I've got it written down here, and that is from 1962. So you can sort of see the detailing of these dolls, that the outfits is very high, like it exceeds what we have nowadays. So that's my brunette swirl. This is Midge. You mentioned Midge. Somebody mentioned Midge. This is Midge from 1962. One of my friends in the club gave me this doll. Original outfit from 1964. Outdoor life. That is. So really, really good condition. You know, like these outfits have lasted the test of time. This doll here is a bubble cut. Does anyone know the bubble cut dolls? Did anyone have one of those? Yeah. Yeah, very popular. I think this is kind of the first big series that came to Australia. The bubble cut inspired by Jackie Kennedy, I suppose, in the early 60s. She's wearing a tennis outfit called Tennis, anyone? From, I think, about 1961. Original racket and things, so she's in great condition. I found her in an op shop for $5. So you can find these dolls. Mind you, this is pre-2023, pre-movie. So nowadays I go into an op shop, and I don't see any Barbie dolls. Like they've just been whisked away by somebody, so probably wouldn't see that now. Another one, this is a reproduction doll from 2009, reproduction of a 1959 doll. And she's wearing a reproduction outfit called Friday Night Date. So, yes, she's got a solid chest. So the proportions of, that's right, Barbie's meant to be about 17, 18. So she's very well developed. You know, like these Americans, they seem to grow up a lot faster, don't they, than we would do. Driving cars and, having very full lives. So she has a very full life, and she dates Ken. So that's reproduction. I've got a few more in here that I'll get out. Okay, so this is another reproduction that I have, 2021, I think. But anyway, she's wearing this outfit called Enchanted Evening. And the reason I brought this one is because this is from 1959. So this is one of the outfits that they sold separately. So the dolls were worth about $3 and the outfits were worth about $1.50. And they made a lot more money on the outfits. So you can see why little girls, particularly, would have liked, hey, I really want that outfit, Mum, go and spend the money. So 1959 outfit, Enchanted Evening. And so Mattel, being a corporation, have got many reproductions of this outfit. So this is a latest doll, and it's called Replay the Classics. 80 years of Mattel, an Enchanted Evening outfit on a Playline doll. So let's try and make more money, shall we? That's what it's all about, But guess what? We buy it. We love it. So there you go. They keep making these things. This is a reproduction astronaut Barbie from 1965. It's interesting. Again, I'll put my little STEM hat on. So this Barbie was released in 1965, the original. This is a reproduction. There was no women in space till the 1980s. So that sort of idea about little girls, particularly, being able to do whatever they wanted and being, having dreams, is very intoxicating. Very intoxicating. That's right. So that's why these things worked. Because, women, mothers, there was definitely a shift in the late 50s and the 60s around the role of women going into the workforce, and Ruth was very mindful of that, and she definitely lent into it, like that little girls can be whatever they want to be, and they can follow their dreams. So that astronaut is definitely, following that one. Here we go. Another doll is a reproduction doll, but she's gone fishing. So this outfit, there's a little fishing pole, I didn't bring it, and she's got a hat. And anyway, so Barbie's from Willows, Wisconsin, and she has an outdoor life, and she goes fishing, she has a camper van, and she does many things. There's 200 careers for Barbie, and I'm sure you are aware of those. Oh, okay, I forgot. Yes, here he is. This is Ken he's an original 1961 Ken that I found at an auction somewhere. I think I paid $60 for him. And it's an original outfit. I think it's called Sorority Meeting, in great condition. So there he is. He's a nice handbag. You get to see Ken, but beautiful quality outfits. They've got zippers in them, they've got buttons. The fabric choices have lasted, the elastic has lasted. Okay, what else? So this is another reproduction Ken, and the reason I brought this doll is that he's Barbie's boyfriend, right? And he's a teenager as well. But that's how he gets around in 1959 or 1961. Ken was born in 1961. So, three-piece suit, tie. Like I said, high school students are a bit different in America. So I've got a few more dolls. I'll put a bit of a display out. But really that's it. Has anybody got any questions about Barbie or Ruth or...
How many editions of Barbie are there? Do you know? Thousands?
How many editions?
From number 1 through to...
That's a really good question, because I don't think anyone actually knows the answer to that. I don't think Mattel even knows the answer to that. And the reason being is that they outsourced their manufacturing to Japan and then later to China, to Hong Kong. And what they did was, whenever they did a doll run with a plastic moulding, if they had bits left over, they would make other dolls and they would release them into different markets, not into, the American market. So they might have, 1,000 arms left and, 1,000 legs, and they'll make something, and they'll go, yep, just make it, get the product out, sell it, whip up a dress, put it in a bag, and sell it in the Australian market or sell it in the UK market or something like that. So there was not really, there's a catalogue of official kind of dolls, but there's all these variations on the theme. And that's what drives us as collectors, because we get so excited. If somebody's found a doll that was released in Spain that has a certain kind of hair colour, and there's only 500 of them, and we're like, sends people into the stratosphere. So there's not really one place. I think that we can sort of put our hands up, as collectors and know about the early series into the 1960s, but once we got into the 70s, it all just went crazy, And collecting officially started in the 1990s. So Mattel released collectible dolls in 1994, 95, I think. So you might have seen in the shops there were Dolls of the World series, and then they had Happy Holiday series. So these are big dolls, collector sort of style boxes, display boxes, very big outfits. So that's when it all sort of taped off. But we'll collect anything. So that's a great question though. One I wish I had an answer for. Any other comments or thoughts or anything you want to share about your experience with
everyone's shoes fixed, or are they set? I just remember my daughters had thousands of pairs of shoes and bags.
Yeah, no, these early ones, the shoes definitely come off, but they're really well built and designed that they stay on their feet. But certainly the 70s, 80s dolls, yeah, shoes go everywhere. You know, we've got a bit of a thing in our club for our meetings that we don't take shoes. I'm pretty good, I can look after my shoes, but we know that if you take a doll to a meeting and you have it displayed, that the shoes will go missing, and that'll be the end of that. So you're right, shoes they come off. Yeah, so they vary the plastics, they vary the manufacturing techniques. If you think about the 70s dolls, the superstar dolls, does anyone know about superstar Barbie? She had very different proportions. She had like these really wide shoulders, like the waist was tinier than these original dolls, and her boobs were massive. So who makes clothes for dolls? I do, but does anyone make doll clothes? Yeah. So you have to dress it to the doll, the proportions, because they are very different for Barbie. So they definitely experimented. They had bendable knee ones and then straight leg. They've got a lot of skin tone now, so they've got about 30 different skin tones. I think they've got about 50 different hair colours that you can have. They're moving into inclusion Barbie. So I bought a Barbie with diabetes the other day. And there's Barbies in wheelchairs, there's blind Barbie, there's autistic Barbie. There's, Barbies to represent everybody. So, yeah. And they're all Barbie, which is confusing, right? Everyone's Barbie. Any other questions? All right, well, on that note, I'll hand it over.
Thank you, Angela. That was fantastic.
That's okay.